Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about War of the Ring. So War of the Ring was put out in 2008 by Games Workshop. It's a big battles version of their Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. Now it's called Middle-earth strategy battle game, I think. Well, I know because I have it right there. Anyway, War of the Ring was the way to scale up. So Lord of the Rings strategy battle game is single figures, like this one, in a skirmish game. So it was, you can recreate the Fellowship. You can kind of do sieges like Helm's Deep if you scale it way down. So you have all your heroes and then 20 or 30 Rohan and 15 Galadrim elves, and you just recycle Uruk-hai. But they wanted to do big battles, so they wanted to be able to do Helm's Deep at maybe not 1-to-1 scale, but something close, like a big scale. Or Pelennor Fields is a good example, or the Forts of Isen, which I played a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, it's the big battle version of the Middle-earth strategy battle game, and I'm going to do one of those critical reviews on it. Essentially, if you don't know how these work, 5 good things, 3 sort of not bad things, but things that I don't particularly like, and then something that makes it special or unique. So let's get started. Number 1, it's easy to learn. So if you know how to play Middle-earth strategy battle game, the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, you know how to play War of the Ring pretty much. There's some basic movement concepts that you're going to have to get your head around since you're moving trays. So you've got 8 figures per infantry tray and 2 figures per cavalry tray, which means that you get 3 trays per box. 24 infantry figures in a box, 6 cavalry figures. Which means if you're like me and smart, you do an all-cavalry army, so you have to paint far less. But anyway, it's very easy to learn. So your profile looks like it does in normal Lord of the Rings. You've got your fight, strength, defense, attacks, wounds, courage, and then might. There's no will or fate. You don't need to worry about that. Moving, shooting, fighting, it's all pretty standard wargame stuff. It's different, but if you know how to play wargames, you know how to play War of the Ring, essentially. You can be taught quite quickly. So for example, when you get into combat, one unit is fight 5, the other one is fight 3. They get an extra 2 dice. 2 higher fight than 5 is 2 higher than 3, 2 extra dice. Just basic, simple stuff like that. Lancers give you a bonus on the charge. 2-handed weapons reduce your fight but increase your to hit rolls. Simple stuff like that. It's a very easy game to pick up and a very easy game to teach someone. No rolling saves. You get wounded, you lose guys. It's pretty simple. So, point number 2, and this is related to point number 1, is that you don't have to spend forever rolling dice. So you have just a hit roll and that's it. So for example, say you want to shoot at somebody. You don't have to roll a hit, then roll a wound, you just roll dice. So you have your strength of your weapon and their defense, and that's all you're looking at. You'll get more dice if you're a better shot, or less dice if you're a worse shot, or they might have cover that'll increase their defense, but all you're doing is rolling dice, and you roll either death or no death. And if you roll death, they lose guys. If you roll no death, they don't. It's the same in close combat, and even magical attacks is the same sort of thing. You're just rolling 1 set of dice. It's the same in close combat as well. So you're not rolling, okay, what's your fight value, what's my fight value, okay, let's dice off to see who wins the fight. Okay, I've won the fight, now let me roll a wound. I don't wound you. Okay, we'll do that for the rest of the game. Or it's not like, was it Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar now is the one where you have to roll 3+ to hit you and then a 4+ to wound you or something like that. It's 1 dice, simple, quick, easy, relaxed. Number 3, it uses the standard Lord of the Rings miniatures that you get from Games Workshop, or you can use some alternative minis like I know Vikings as Dunlendings are quite popular. What's that company that I'll put the picture up here? They do the tribal things which are good for the Mahud, or there's actually a whole group on Facebook dedicated to alternative miniatures for Lord of the Rings. So there's a great resource there. So it doesn't have to cost a fortune, or you can fill the gaps in your army. Like I don't think you can buy them Hood anymore. So those tribals could help. Also means if you're like me and you have Lord of the Rings armies, or 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago now, you got into Lord of the Rings when it first came out, but you sort of, you got some Rohan or you got some Minas Tirith and you sort of put them away. Or maybe, you've bought a big lot of them and you just sort of have it stashed away somewhere and you're not really doing anything with it. Paint them up, bust them out for War of the Ring. So yeah, you don't have to go out and buy a whole new set of minis if you love Lord of the Rings and you just want to do the big battles. You didn't have to go and buy new minis. You can use your same Gandalf, your same Éomer, your same Riders of Rohan, your same Uruk-hai. You just need more of them. Number 4, it came out with a supplement called Battle Hosts, or Battle Hosts came shortly after, but anyway, you can't get either of them anymore. See you later. But Battle Hosts is a way to make the themed army. So if you're familiar with the old 40k Armageddon, and I think they brought it into normal 40k and they got rid of it again. But basically, you pay like 25 points to take the Battle Host, and then you pay for what's in it. There's a Faramir's one where they're Faramir and some knights to recreate that charge on Osgiliath in the movie. You've seen that. Happened in the book too, obviously. So basically, they're more resistant to shooting, and you've got to kill them all to wipe them out instead of just killing a certain number of them. And they're better when they get beaten in combat. So it's sort of like it recreates that sort of last charge sort of list. So there's some cool ones like that. There's a really good Osgiliath veteran one, where you take Faramir and or Boromir, I can't remember what it is, and some Osgiliath veterans who are better at moving in ruins, and they get more bonuses when they're fighting in buildings, so you get to recreate a bit of that theme. General advice is, if someone's taking one, the other person should be taking one too. The Great Horde of Gorgoroth is a great example. The huge horde of, I think it's like 18 bases of orcs, which is 86, like 144 orc models. just this giant blob of orcs with infinite captains and all these rules. One of them is just the winged Nazgul. Erkenbrand's riders, Éomer and Gandalf. Gandalf leading trebuchets at Minas Tirith. Haradrim, Mumax, Easterlings, a mixed Haradrim, Easterling and Corsair force. Goblins and Balrog, dragons and stuff. So the battle hosts will let you make these cool little themed armies, and they let you can sort of get a bit more of a flavor from it, and I really like that they do that. Number 5, you can do historical and points-based games without any issue. So everything in the book has points. Everything in there has upgrades. Normally most things have upgrades. And then you've got extra things like you can buy fortunes for 100 points or 20 points, which is sort of like a, reroll a magic test, or get priority this turn, or something like that. So everything's got a points value. It's all very reasonably balanced. There are a few things that maybe you look at and you go, really, that should cost more, but you can work that out among yourselves. And it's good for the, quote, historical games. I'll put some pictures up here. I played the Fords of Isen, which is actually a battle in Lord of the Rings that I'm quite fond of. I like that battle, where Theodred defends the Fords of Isen. Grimbold and Elfhelm come into his aid. In our game, everybody died except Theodred. Theodred and some Royal Guard managed to hold the little island on the fords, and as they were getting encircled, rode away. So our game went a little bit differently. I still lost, but Theodred wasn't killed. I tell you what, those Royal Guard on an island, on a defensive position with Theodred, are nearly unkillable. 2 trolls they killed, a bunch of berserkers, I think a whole unit of orcs. If you can get in a good defensive position, you're great. Anyway, so there are historical games in here. The Ents attacking Isengard is one example. I believe there's some Osgiliath. They actually have a battle report in the main rulebook of an Osgiliath game, which is quite cool, and it's great to see. And you're flicking through the book, and you're like, oh my goodness, look at these giant miniatures. They actually do have this giant collection of miniatures, and they're playing a game with it. That looks awesome. I want to do that. It comes also with the standard, this is how you paint stuff, this is how you build stuff. So yeah, you can do the historical games. They've got Helm's Deep. They've got a few cool ones in there. I think there's one with dwarves and goblins, and it's not hard to write your own. They've all got cool special rules. So the Fords of Isen that we played had a flanking force which in the books was Dunlendings, but in our game was Warg Riders. And then you had reserves coming in. The fords, if you lost a fight on the fords, you took extra casualties, which was great for me because I was defending. There's a little island that if you were on it, you got 4 extra defense, which is fantastic. I put heavily armored infantry on there, massive defense. And there was something else. What was it? Anyway, but there were some scenario rules. When the Ents attack Isengard, there's rules for flaming arrows. I think Kar Andros is one of them as well. So there's rules for that sort of thing. So yeah, I think there's even attack on the Pelargir with the army of the dead attacking the Corsairs. But anyway, I'm rambling too much about this. But it's very cool. You can recreate the historical battles of Lord of the Rings, book or movie. There's rules for everything. You got the rules for the Rangers of the North, rules for the Army of the Dead, rules for Earl the Young, which is this guy here, who is the first king of Rohan, and I particularly like his story. You can do him. You got the Khandish in there. Everyone's represented, and the ones who aren't have profiles on Facebook. I'll talk about that at the end. That's what I really like about the game. 3 things that are a bit, Number 1, it's out of print. You can't actually get this game anymore. There are plenty of copies flying around on eBay. People have it in their collections. Some of you might be able to go online and find PDF copies. It's none of my business what you do. I'm going to say not to do it. I'm going to not recommend. I can't stop you. May or may not exist. Anyway, War of the Ring is not technically in print anymore. And that makes it quite hard to find opponents. So even if you get yourself a War of the Ring book and you're like, oh, I love this game, let's go play this game, take it to your local club. It's going to be quite hard to entice other people into playing this game, which requires quite a lot of minis, and not a lot of people really play, even though it's super fun. And you've got to hunt down a rulebook for who knows how much money, or get a PDF version of a rulebook that never had PDFs. Again, disavow, but can't stop you. It's quite annoying, but it's a great game, so don't let that stop you. Number 2, it's got a phenomenally large model count. So a standard unit is starts off with a company of 8 for infantry. I'll talk about infantry for the moment. And you normally want about 3 or 4 bases per company. So let's use let's look at Minas Tirith. So you've got 8 swordsmen of Minas Tirith. Spears and swords are the same, so you don't need to differentiate between them. So if you buy a box of Warriors of Minas Tirith, you'll have... you know what? Let me use the example from the book. Wait a second.
What are we waiting for?
So let me use the example they give in the book, actually, because it's fantastic, so it's easy. In the book, they give a 775-point Minas Tirith force. The games I've played have been 1,500 to 2,000 points, so double everything in this, and you'll get basically how much an army is going to cost you. If you build something like dwarves or Uruk-hai, slightly cheaper. Something like goblins, massively more expensive. If you run them on 3 or 4 Mumaks, please don't, but you can. Probably won't be that much cheaper anyway. But let's use the example. So they have 2 boxes of Warriors of Minas Tirith, box of Knights, a Trebuchet, and a Bolt Thrower. So I would personally, you can swap the Trebuchet out for another box. So basically, let's just say 3 boxes of Warriors of Minas Tirith, and then you buy some Bolt Throwers secondhand on the market, like these ones here I got from for some RPG game. Made them up for my hobbits, halflings. They were $10 for 2. So let's say you bought 2 Bolt Throwers, 3 boxes of infantry, and a box of cavalry. That's maybe 1,000 points. Throw in a hero, some command upgrades. So it's not exactly a cheap thing to get into, but the great thing is so many people already have that stuff tucked away. And that was sort of the idea of this, was not to launch a new game and say, come and buy into this new game. I'm sure they hoped people would do that, but it was really about, hey, you guys who have large collections, or you clubs which have large collections, pull your resources together and let's play some War of the Ring. I'm fortunate enough that I have a whole War of the Ring Rohan army, which I bought as a bunch of job lots, some broken minis in this one, some broken minis here, bunch of cheap Riders of Rohan, second-hand stuff that I managed to collect together, fix up, do a little bit of conversion work, put a bit of time into it, and now I have a 2,000 point list. But But that 2,000 point list has 12 Sons of Eorl, which are not cheap. Let's just say those were a long-term purchase, those were. And I think is a 12 or 18 Mounted Royal Guard, which are also not the cheapest things in the world either. So yeah, it's not something that's easy to get into model-wise, but once you have everything you need, it's a lot of fun. And number 3, you need some house rules. You need to have a few house rules in here. Not many, but some. So the one we use is 1 hero per 1,000 points, although we're thinking of putting it down to 750 points. Or 800 points, but 1 hero per 1,000 points. If you're running someone like Aragorn and Gandalf in a 1,000 point game, I mean, you're not going to have a lot of units around, but heroes are very overpowered in this. But since all the heroes are overpowered, if you just limit the amount of heroes you can have, it works a lot better. Normally 1 magic caster per side, maybe 2, like a Ring Wraith and a couple of an Orc Shaman or something. I generally don't like Shamans; they're pretty expensive, but that's another thing. I think Banners should probably be a bit cheaper. Hornblower's a bit cheaper. Anyway, there's a few house rules, and there's actually a Facebook page called, I think it's called War of the Ring Facebook Appreciation Community or something. I'll put a link down in the description below. I'll put the text here and a picture of it here. It's run by a friend of mine. And you can see pictures of our games on there. And he's got some custom profiles for some of the stuff in The Hobbit. The Goblins from Goblin Town, the Warg Riders from the Hunter Orcs, Gundabad, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's fan-made stuff that's keeping it alive, but you do need some restrictions that aren't in the actual game itself, just to make it a little bit fairer. So what makes the game special? What's that little factor here that separates this from other games? Well, it's that you can link it in with the normal Lord of the Rings game to run campaigns with it. Not only are the miniatures useful for the game itself, they're also useful for little mini games. So, for example, say you're doing like a 4 or 5 game Rohan versus Uruk-hai sort of campaign, and you've got your big War of the Ring army, but maybe you want to do a skirmish where you have some Dunlendings and some Uruk-hai, or Dunlendings and Orcs or something, or Warg Riders attacking a little village. And so you say, okay, well, if the evil player, the Uruk-hai Isengard player, wins this game, then the Rohan player loses D3 companies of Riders of Rohan, because they're defending the village or something. But if the Rohan player wins, then all the Dunlendings in the army in the next game lose 1 courage, because they didn't get to do the thing they wanted. They didn't get to do the pillaging. So you can link the skirmish game in with the main game. Or for example, say you wanted to do, I don't know, does Faramir get out of Osgiliath? So you play your big Osgiliath game with your War of the Ring, and then you play a skirmish game where he's trying to escape. There is that scenario with the Nazgul where they're swooping down, attacking the fleeing guys, and then Imrahil and the knights are charging out. Play that skirmish game. If Faramir survives, if he doesn't get wounded and poisoned, maybe he can be available for the next game, which can be part of the Minas Tirith siege. If he does, then he can't be a part of it. That sort of thing. So you can link the skirmish game in with the War of the Ring game. And I think that really gives a lot of flexibility to it. I think it broadens the campaign that you can do with it. I think it's just an all-round positive thing. Anyway, that's War of the Ring. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've ever thought about playing, or if you've ever played it yourself, pop in the comments below and let me know. If you'd like any other games looked at, let me know as well. I'm always happy to do that sort of thing. It's been a long time, but I am back. So it's really fun to play. Had a great time. The Fords of Isen was a great game, and I've been popping pictures up every now and then. I did lose, but Theodred survived, which was my main objective the whole time. I don't really care if the Uruk-hai get control of some Fords. Theodred survived, and that means Rohan's line is secure. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.